We oftentimes just refer to chapter 17 as the battle between David and Goliath. Was that the way it was supposed to have been? Who said no? Somebody said no. Tim said no. I think I heard that voice. He said no. So, see, he done spoken up now. He's in trouble. Who was it supposed to have been between, Tim? I think Michelle ribbed him and he said, oh. Who was this battle originally between?
Philistines and Israel.
Yeah, the Philistines and Israel. And then there was one Philistine who stepped out and challenged the opposition forces, and all he asked for was a what? Was a man. I just want one man. Now who should the battle have been between? It should have been between Saul, the champion of Israel, and Goliath, the champion of the Philistines. And what happened to Saul? Cowered out, did he not? Chickened out. How long did this old giant challenge the armies of Israel? 40 days. And who finally winds up on the field of battle? David. Why was he there? Did he come to fight? Oh, there are chickens over there, so I think I'll run down there to the battlefield and fight the battle. Is that why he ran down there? No. Yeah, his father had sent him to the field of battle, hadn't he? He wanted him to see how his brothers were doing. You know, here's a father who's very concerned about his sons. And, a lot of things can happen in battle, can't they? You can be wounded, you can be killed, and the father might not hear about that for several weeks if the battle is prolonged. And so he wants to know, how are my boys? So he sends David down there, and David comes to the field of battle. And does David hear the challenge of Goliath? Oh, yes. He hears the challenge of Goliath. And that's kind of where we ended last week. And we're pick up right at that point this week. Okay? Who's got a good outline of this particular section? Anybody want to give us their outline? We'll do a couple. All right, here we go. All right, number one, David takes some food. All right, David approaches the battleground. Well, there's some big words. David comprehends the significance of Goliath. Wow, now that's a good thought. You know that? David was reprimanded. Now that's a surprise, isn't it? Here's finally a man who will fight and he gets reprimanded. Unbelievable. Next. David makes his plea. David makes his plea. Wow, good points. Guys, all you got to do is read the section and ask a question. What is the main point of this section? That's all you have to do. Okay, that's what outlining is all about, isn't it? Here's my outline real quickly. David authorized by his father. Number 2, David arrives at the battle. Number 3, David advised of Saul's reward. Number 4, David admonished by Eliab. And number 6, David agrees to fight. Okay, 5 points that we have in this particular section. All right, let's go through it and let's just see what we can learn and some things we can apply to our lives. Who sent David to check on his brethren who were encamped with Saul? Yes, and Jesse said unto David his son. And we've already mentioned about the fatherly concern about these brothers. Are they alive or are they dead? Are they still in good health or are they wounded? He probably even wanted to know about the battle itself, right? Are we winning or are we losing the battle? So off he sends his son. What 2 things were given to David to give to his brothers? Okay, dried grain or parched corn and 10 loaves. Take now this parched corn and these 10 loaves and run to the camp of thy brethren. So off he goes. He's got some things for his brothers, some provisions for them. And who did he not leave out of this? Gift giving. Yeah, he's going to give a captain something, is he not? Okay, he's not dumb. You know, you're going to send your son to battle and you're going to give some food to some of the warriors. You better give some to who? To the captain, right? What did Jesse send to the captain of their 1,000? 10 cheeses, and carry these 10 cheeses unto the captain of their 1,000. Okay, pretty interesting. He would be the one who was over his 3 sons. Okay, oftentimes the armies were divided into tens, 50s, hundreds, and thousands. And he sends one over how many? 1,000. Remember last week we made mention of the fact that we're not told exactly how many warriors were there. I know at least how many were there. 1,000, because there's a captain of 1,000 on the battlefield. 1,000 Jews at least refused to do battle with Goliath. At least. That includes the captain of 1,000 and the commander of the entire army. Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. And look now how thy brethren blank, and they're blank. Look now on how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Wow. Take their pledge. What in the world did Jesse mean when he said, take their pledge? Jim? Okay, notice what he says though. And look how thy brethren fare, and take their pledge. Their pledge. Their promise. The word pledge, something given as security. A pledge. Okay? A token of safety. Pledge, token, bond, surety, thing exchanged. What was this dad concerned about? Yeah. Are my sons still alive? And he sends David to the field of battle, and he says, I want you to see how they fare, and I want you to bring back their what? Their pledge. What might that be? Anything that they possessed, right? That they took with them. Okay? Here is Eliab's robe. Here is one of the sandals of my brother that was busted during the battle. And he said, for you to see this. And upon seeing that, what would the dad know? Yeah, they're still alive. They're fine. They're not dead. A pledge, folks. Take their pledge. I want some proof of what? Proof of life. Okay, and so he wants to take their pledge. And so David should have come back with something from them. And it may have just been a what? It may have just been a word that they were okay. Okay? It may have been as simple as that. Don't know exactly what they would send, but they would have sent something. In what valley did Israel fight against the Philistines? Yeah, we've already talked about this, haven't we? The valley of Elah. Now Saul and they and all the men of God were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. Were they really? Were they really fighting? No. The confrontation had begun, hadn't it? But there's no physical fighting up to this particular point. At what time of day did David leave to go to his brethren? Early in the morning. Now David rose up early in the morning. It's interesting that you find on several occasions individuals got up early to do the will of God. Okay? They would rest the night and then get up early, be energized and ready to go and do what needed to be done early in the morning. The distance from Bethlehem to the valley of Elah was about 84 miles, guys. Okay? About 84 miles. Now, he's not driving a Maserati. Okay? And he doesn't have a motorcycle even, right? He's either walking or riding an animal or in a carriage. Okay? Keep that thought in mind. Okay? A carriage. If you're pulling a carriage 94 miles, now they didn't have super highways either, did they? Is that going to be kind of a pretty long journey? Yeah, hard, bumpy, long, dusty, hot, possible journey. And if it's in the winter months, then it's a cold ride, isn't it? So this is not an easy task for this young man, and yet his father trusted in him enough to send him to the field of battle. Okay, here's a young man who all he's doing is tending sheep, and yet his dad trusts him enough to go see how things are going. With whom did he leave his sheep? Yes, a keeper. And left his sheep with a keeper. Is there a lesson there? Is there a lesson? No lesson? What's the lesson? You see, sometimes we just okay, he left him with a keeper. There's got to be a lesson there. Yeah, guys, if you've got a duty to do and you're going to be gone from the duty, get somebody to do it. It's pretty simple. Yes, they do. Folks, if you got a Bible class you're supposed to teach and you're not going to be here, guess what? Get a teacher. Right? Tell somebody, I'm not going to be here. Don't show up and leave your class empty. That happens in congregations all the time. You know? What if I'm scheduled to preach here and I just don't show up? It's going to put some burden on somebody, isn't it? You know? Now today they just grab Corey and say, get up there, boy. You know? But that's not the way it always is. Okay? So we need to, don't forsake your responsibility unless you have that responsibility covered. And it doesn't matter what that is. Glenn's not here today. Every time Glenn leaves, guess what? A couple of old boys get a phone call, don't you, Wes? And Aaron, they'll get called. And we're glad that they're here, and we're glad that they are able to step up. So remember, take care of your responsibilities. What was happening as David approached the trench? Yes, and David went, and Jesse had commanded him, and came to the trench as the house was going forth to fight, and shouted for the battle. Wow. He arrived just as who? Goliath came out, did he not? The giant, the champion of the Philistines. Sorry. What's that little word trench mean? Anybody look that up? Notice what it says. And he came to the trench. Okay, where the carriage is. The trench indicates a wagon rampart, folks. Okay, it was a place where they gathered the wagons together and parked their wagons, and then could even circle them for the battle if need be. Okay, and so what does that indicate? What did David take to the field of battle? Sounds like he took a carriage, did he not, to the field of battle, because he pulls up right by the trench, right by the place where the carriages are. But they could have just parked horses there, couldn't they? We'll see, okay? For Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in blank army against army array. I'm still amazed at the words, aren't you? Guys, even though there's no physical fighting going on, there is conflict. Okay? Can that happen in all wars? Yeah. Just because you have some downtime and just because you have some time where there's no actual physical fighting doesn't mean that there's not a battle going on. Okay? The battle is there. The battle is raging. And every day, 2 times a day, Goliath is challenging the armies of Israel, isn't he? So, very interesting. With whom did David leave his carriage? Yes, the keeper of the carriage. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage and ran into the army and came and saluted his brethren. The keeper of the carriage. So, this was not an easy journey that David made. He had quite a bit of supplies with him to take to the field of battle, and his own supplies as well. So it was a difficult 84-mile trip that David made. Who came up as David spoke with his brethren? Ah, yes, the champion of the Philistines, did he not? And as he talked with them, behold, there came up the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, out of the armies of Israel. I always find it interesting that they describe him almost every time with 4 descriptors. Right? Champion, of Gath, what else? A giant, and what else? Of the Philistines. Okay? Almost every time they describe him, they really give the full significance of who this big guy is. Okay? Okay, yep, but still fighting for the armies of the Philistines. Yep, he was. The Anaks were giant people, and so they would be enlisted into the battle. To do well. They were a what do they call it? One of the tribes of Canaan. Okay. And so they would be part of those enemies that were in the land of Canaan. And so they would, who was the presiding power over the region at this particular time? The Philistines. Okay? The Philistines were the presiding power of the region. And so other groups of individuals would enlist and fight against whomever they thought needed to be fought against. And whoever they thought would prevail and win. True or false? David did not hear the things that Goliath said to Israel. False. And spake according to the same words, and David heard them. Now I want you to think, David pulls up, here's what he hears. Give me a man. That's what he hears. Give me a man. Isn't that what he heard? Wow. You know, isn't it interesting how words impact people differently? Now, you would have thought if you had been the king of Israel and you heard the words, give me a man, as the king, you would have immediately volunteered, right? I'll go out there and fight him. Not Saul. He won't take a foot on that field, will he? And David pulls up, hears the same message, give me a man, and reacts totally different to what he hears, doesn't he? Wow. Oh, man. Oh, yeah. You know he is. Okay? What 2 things did the men of Israel do when they saw Goliath? They fled from him and were... Oh, man. Don't leave out the don't leave out the adjectives. And were sore afraid. They weren't just afraid, folks. Okay? You know, I was afraid of my mama. I was sore afraid of my daddy. Okay? There's a difference, isn't there? Okay? Yeah, that's pretty close. Absolutely. That's pretty close to his size right there. These are the very same words, guys, translated greatly afraid in 1 Samuel 17:11. Okay, as far as the Hebrew is concerned, they were greatly afraid, sore afraid. Now, that little word greatly means vehemently afraid, wholly afraid, afraid through and through. There was not one part of their body that wasn't scared to death, even their little toes. Totally fearful. Jackie?
You would have wondered had it not been Goliath and had just been a champion, would Saul have then said, yeah, I'll go.
Don't know. Don't have a clue, do we? That's a big guy, though. You know, we're talking about somebody even bigger than Tim. You know, I'm so afraid of him. And he's not 9'9". Put about half more on top of him, and then I'd really shake in my boots. What 3 things would the king give to the man who killed Goliath? Number 1, great riches. Number 2, the daughter of Saul. And number 3, his father's house shall be free in Israel. Wow. And the men of Israel said, have ye seen that man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And it shall be that the man who killeth him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and will give him his daughter, and make his daughter's house free in Israel. Wow. For some reason, I don't know why, daughters of royalty are usually just pretty good looking. You know? If she weren't, that might not be a benefit. You know, you might think, oh, he's just trying to get her off his hands. Okay? But if she's a pretty woman, that's an enticement to a man, is it not? Okay? And so, three things that have been promised. What do the words, make his father's house free in Israel mean? Anybody look that up? No taxes. Okay? Anybody else? Nobody else? There's been two views of it. Okay? No taxes would be one. Okay, now, the second view includes no taxes. Okay, do y'all remember in 1 Samuel chapter 8, the children of Israel cried out for a king, did they not? And God told Samuel, okay, if they want a king, give them a king, but I want you to go to them, and I want you to tell them all these things that the king is going to require of them. Right? I'm going to take your what? I'm going to take your sons. I'm going to take your daughters. I'm going to take your animals. I'm going to take your land. I'm going to take your servants. I'm going to take everything that I need to do what's needed in the kingdom. Right? Guess what you just came under? You came under the bondage of the king. Okay? Guys, anytime somebody starts taking stuff away from you, guess what? You become their slave. Did you know that? You're bound to them. Okay? And that's what was going to happen in Israel. You're going to be bound to this king. Well, guess what? Saul says, if you will just go out and kill this giant, guess what? You're free in Israel. What three men were on the field of battle right now that were very close to David's father? His oldest three sons, right? Jesse's oldest three sons. Why were they there? Because they were bound to the king. But you see, if David would go and fight, guess what? The whole house, his whole father's house is free in Israel. Guess what they no longer have to do? No longer have to fight in the battle. Dad no longer has to be worried about his sons. He no longer has to be worried about his daughters. And where his daughters are going to go, free in Israel. Pay no more taxes. He's not going to come grab my land from me. He's not going to come get my servants. I'm free in Israel. Okay, so it means taxes and all other things. He's a free man. He's no longer under all of that bondage that the king has placed these individuals under. I just find that's pretty interesting. What two questions did David ask when he was told of the king's proposition? Number one, what shall be done to the man that killeth this Philistine? Uh-oh. Did y'all just hear what he said? You come to the field of battle, you hear him. Hey, come here, David, come here. Here's what the king's going to do for the man who kills this giant. Right? Riches, a wife, and free in Israel, his father's house. And David immediately says, what'd you just say? What's going to be done for the man who kills this giant? What's he interested in, folks? Reward. He's interested in reward. Isn't he? In fact, he's going to inquire about it one more time in this chapter. Isn't that something? 3 times David is informed of what Saul will do for the man that kills Goliath. Oh, David fought against the giant because he's a man of faith. Oh, David is a man of great courage, so he fought against the giant. David's also a man who wanted that stinking reward too. Okay? He was a man of courage. He was a man of faith, and he manifests that in the battle. But folks, guess what else propelled him into that battle? That reward did. Okay? And sometimes we don't want to hear that part of David. Okay? He's just a who? He's just a man like we are. Right? And that reward had some appeal to him. But he asked a second question. For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? Is David a pretty little fella? He is, isn't he? The Bible says he's ruddy, red hair, beautiful countenance. He's just a pretty little boy. And all of a sudden now he takes the field of battle like a warrior, doesn't he? It's unbelievable. For who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Notice two things. He calls him a what? An uncircumcised Philistine. What does that mean? He's not in a covenant relationship with God. I am. He's uncircumcised. Circumcision was what? Circumcision was the sign of the covenant. I'm in a right relationship with God. This man is not. Who is this guy fighting the armies of God? And notice that he refers to him as the what? The living God. Folks, who are the gods of the Philistines? Dead gods. Gods of wood, gods of iron, gods of metal, gods of gold, gods of silver. We don't have a dead God. We've got a what? A living God. Had that God already been defeated one time before in the days of Samuel? Yeah, remember Dagon? That's the god of the Philistines, Dagon. God had already whooped him once. Hadn't he? Threw him down, put him back up, threw him down, cut off his head, cut off his hands. He'd already been whipped. David knew who was on his side, didn't he? Now see, now David's manifesting what? Great faith, isn't he? Great faith. I find it interesting that the phrase the living God is not used just a lot of times in Scripture, but it had been used 2 times prior to this, once in Deuteronomy, once in Joshua. Define the word reproach. David said this, "What shall be done to the man that killeth the Philistine and taketh away the reproach from Israel?" What's that word reproach mean? Shame, disgrace, reproach, scorn, resting upon the condition of shame. Okay, folks, this man had done what to Israel? He shamed Israel. Okay, every day. He shamed them twice, didn't he? He's a reproach upon us. He's a contempt upon us. And every day he rises up and every day he keeps making these challenges and nobody fights him. Guess who looks bad in this deal? We do. I'm going to take away the reproach of Israel. I'm going to remove the shame and bring honor back to the people of God. Wow. True or false? The people again affirmed again to David what the king would do for the one who killed Goliath. See there, 3 times. And the people answered him after this manner, saying, "So shall it be done to the man that killeth him." 3 times David's been told of reward. 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 Nothing wrong in rewarding your children. Does God reward us in the last day? Has He promised any reward? Folks, reward is a what? It's a motivator, is it not? Nothing wrong with rewards. Even God is going to reward us in the last day. Okay? There's 3 motivators that we have as far as what God has given us. Number 1 is grace. That ought to motivate us. Number 2, hell. That's fear. That's a pretty good motivator. And then thirdly, there's reward. Right? That's a motivator. 3 rewards that God has provided. Here, it's just reward. Which brother's anger was kindled against David? Eliab, the old guy, right? And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men. And Eliab's anger was kindled against David. See, David seems too interested, doesn't he? You know what Eliab knew? Eliab knew what David was about to do. You know that? He knew. He knew his brother. This guy is about to go out on the field of battle. Crazy thing. But see, it's not that he thought his brother was crazy. It's because his brother brought shame to him. If Saul hadn't gone to the field of battle, Eliab should have. He stood head and shoulders over the men of Israel as well, did he not? Why wasn't he out there fighting? Because he's scared. And now here David is starting to perk up a little interest. What shall be done, boy? It may have been more like this. Done with them sheep. That's what it may have been. Okay? What two things did Eliab say that he knew about David? His pride and what? The naughtiness of his heart. I know thy pride and the naughtiness of thine heart. I know who you are. You're out here to make a show. For thou at once came down that thou mightest see the battle. Is that why he came down? He came down, why? Because his father told him to go. He didn't come down to see the battle. If his dad hadn't said a word to him, he'd still been keeping sheep. Okay? Folks, people that don't like us, people that are envious of us, guess what they'll do? They'll lie about us. You know what? That happens a lot. Eliab should have been one of the men to take the field of battle, first of all. Notice our family can often be the ones who are the most critical of our doing the will of God, right? They get envious and jealous when you do what's right. They don't like that. And they're the ones who call us out. That little word naughtiness means badness, evil, bad quality. I know the bad quality of your heart. Wow. That's his own brother making that accusation. The Bible says David had a heart like who? Like God. Isn't that something? You're talking about a false accusation. You got a naughty heart. God says no. David's got a heart like mine. So that means God's got a what? Naughty heart too? No. What two questions did David use in response to Eliab? Yeah. What have I now done? What's going on here? You're all bent out of shape. What have I done? All I've done is ask about what's going on. All I've done is ask about the world. What have I done? And then he says, is there not a what? Is there not a cause? Folks, that's pretty potent, you know it. When there's a cause, guess what God needs? God needs a man to step up to the cause. Wow. We didn't quite get done, did we? Got a few questions left. Did Saul find out about David? Did he ask for him? Yes, he did. And immediately sends for David, the Bible says. And David said what? Let no man's heart blank because of him. I quoted this verse this morning. Thy servant will go and fight for this Philistine. That little word fail, to fall, to be cast down, to waste away, to be inferior. Here's a lesson. The enemy wants us to believe that we are inferior to him. He wants us to fall to the ground instead of making forward progress. He wants our hearts to waste away instead of taking heart and showing great courage, folks. David says, let no man's heart fail because of him. Good stuff. Next week, guess what we got? We got the fight of our lives going on, don't we? Good stuff.
Say that